All right, so today we are talking about what ecology is. So, what is ecology? You got a little taste of what ecology was with your intro assignment on Canvas with that day in the life thing. So, if you haven't done that, I highly recommend you do it. It's pretty easy, a lot of fun, or at least I thought it was fun. I like reading them. We are going to go over just in general the ecology that we need to know for environmental science. And then I want to kind of set you up for what you will need to do your virtual assignment on Friday, just to make sure that like the system that I want to try will like work. Get you set up on like the website just to see if we can do it. So, first of all, when ecologists, like we said, we break up the Earth into like spheres with the hydrosphere, biosphere, lithosphere. We like to break down things even farther. So, how do scientists break up the biosphere into easily studyable, don't know if that's a word, parts? That's a question ecologists ask a lot. So, they break it into levels. So, we've got a bunch of different levels of organization that we're going to talk about, but I also want to talk specifically about what ecologists do and why breaking down the biosphere is important to ecologists. So, ecologists study how organisms interact with other organisms and or their environments. At all levels, from the individual to the biosphere. So, anywhere in the biosphere, if an organism is interacting with another organism, or an organism is interacting with its environment, it all comes down to ecologists. That's what ecologists like to do. Anything from the courtship rituals that a certain species has to the impact climate change has on bird migrations to the process of eutrophication, which we talked about with the phosphorus cycle, and how increased phosphorus levels could affect populations. So, we are going to talk about these individual levels. So, the levels. I'll make this big. So, the levels of organization. Any scientist that is working with anything in the physical world will inevitably run into one of these levels of organization. We're going to start with the smallest level of classification and work our way up to the biggest. So, the first level of organization, the smallest you can get, is the individual. Meaning, if I wanted to classify the entire planet, I could eventually break these categories down and break these categories down and break these categories down until you get to one person, one plant, one deer. Bless you. The first level of organization is the individual. The individual is the basic level of study for ecologists. Bless you. Meaning, at the very, very base of all ecology, it all kind of breaks down to an individual organism and what that individual organism is doing. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast? I'll slow down a little bit. So, the next level of organization is the population. Whoops. A population is a group of individuals of the same species. Group of individuals of the same species. All right. From there, we need the definition of species. Now, a species is any group of individuals, so group of individuals with similar characteristics that can reproduce or interbreed. That can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. This fertile offspring bit is important. Just because two organisms can have a baby doesn't necessarily mean that those organisms are the same species. For example, you take a lion and a tiger, you can breed them together, and what do you get? A liger. So, ligers are all infertile. You can't put, Kind of, yeah. So, if you take two ligers and you put them in a cage, you can't make any more ligers. It's not how it works. You can't take two ligers and make another liger. That tells us that lions and tigers are two separate species. The same thing if you breed a horse and a donkey together, you get a mule. But all mules are infertile. You can't put two mules together and get more mules. That tells us that horses and donkeys are two different species. Not necessarily male, but they don't reproduce. Like, they can't reproduce. So they don't have the internal plumbing to do so. Yeah. Not necessarily sure the genetics on that, but it could be true. I'll have to look into it. All right. So, a population is a group of individuals of the same species. After we get we would be considered a population. Us in this classroom, we are a population because we are all the same species. After population, we have communities. Communities are all of the populations in an area. So let's say Mrs. Veach's class across the hall, right? Let's say they're an alien species. They're not human. But those alien species want to come into our class and learn about ecology because they want to study what humans study. We would then be a community because there is more than one species in our area. Does that make sense? We could still study the human population in that community. But if you want to think about all of the individuals, it would be considered a community rather than a population. If we get bigger than a community, we get an ecosystem. An ecosystem is a community plus the physical surroundings. So if we've got our human alien hybrid population in here, so we've got our community, and we start thinking about how they're interacting with the floor, how they're interacting with the desk, how I'm interacting with the board. Then we are starting to think about the ecosystem rather than the community. So the ecosystem is the community plus all other physical characteristics. After we get through ecosystems, we can combine all those ecosystems into the biosphere. The biosphere, like we said, is all parts of the earth that include living things and what they interact with. So, all parts of the earth that include living things and what they interact with. So that's one classification system ecologists use. There are a lot more. Another one we're going to talk about is a little bit more simplistic, and that is abiotic versus biotic factors. Abiotic factors and biotic factors. See. Essentially, biotic factors are our living things. Things like each other, crops, because they're living plant things. If I went over here, I grabbed my little cactus buddy, right? I am a biotic factor in its life. It is a biotic factor in my life. So my interactions with it would be considered biotic interactions. And then there are abiotic factors or non-living things. Things like climate or rivers or soil type. Those would all be considered abiotic factors. So ecologists study all organisms and all of the biotic and abiotic factors in their lives. If we think about our first levels of organization, 1, 2, and 3, the individual, the population, and the community, would just be biotic factors, right? There's no physical things. But then we get to 4 and 5, and we have our living things and our non-living things. So abiotic factors aren't included in our first 3 levels of organization, but they are in our 4th and 5th. Does that make sense? So, would trees be considered a biotic or an abiotic factor? Biotic. What about a thunderstorm? Abiotic. What about a virus? This is where our classification systems can get a little iffy. Not everything in life, as much as we try, can fit into our little black and white boxes. There's still a lot of scientific debate going on whether or not viruses are alive or aren't alive. So, if you think about it, in biology a lot, essentially, if you can justify your answer with evidence, you're getting almost all the way there, especially when it comes to like high school and college classes. So if I asked you on a test, is a virus a biotic or an abiotic factor? As long as you justified your answer and said, they are a biotic factor because they are alive, because they can do this, 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 and this. That's the answer right there. But somebody else could write, they are a non-biotic, they are an abiotic factor because they're not alive, because they can't reproduce on their own. I'd be like, okay, that works too. So it's about justification. So, as a word of advice, in the future, in my class or in any science class whatsoever, instead of leaving answers blank, write something down that relates to the answer, because you never know where that partial credit is going to lie. I cannot tell you how many college exams I passed because I looked at an answer, froze, skipped it, came back to it at the very end and said, well, I don't know the answer to this question, but I do know that the question's asking me about cell membranes, and I know that cell membranes do this, 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 and this. I'm just going to write it out and hope the answer's in there. There's a test-taking strategy for you. Anyway, biotic and abiotic factors. There is one more thing I want to talk about, and that is the definition of a habitat. Because we talk about habitats all the time in ecology and in environmental science. So I feel like a definition would be helpful. So, a habitat is a specific environment in which an organism lives. This is both biotic and abiotic factors. Our abiotic factors are actually, scratch that, sorry. Our habitats provide organisms with resources and the definition of a resource in ecology is a little bit different than our definition of a resource from the beginning of the year. In ecology, a resource is anything an organism needs. Water, nutrients, shelter. Even mates could be considered a resource, or special mating sites. if a certain bird has a certain courtship ritual that it always goes through, and that courtship ritual requires a certain like expanse of land or a certain type of like rock or feather, those could be considered resources that are provided by the organism's habitat. Anybody have any questions? Okay. So that is what I have for you for your introduction to ecology, but we're not done. I believe, hold on one moment. There is an exit ticket for today, but before you do that, I want you to go to this website so we can see if y'all can get logged on. So go to theconcordconsortium.com. I want you to make an account through Google, so sign in through Google. Now, I don't know at this moment what the student side of this website looks like, so bear with me. I might have to peek around a little bit. Then you are going to join my classroom with the code, all lowercase, Carter SCI. I just want to see if this will work. If so, this will be where you will go for your hybrid assignment Thursday, Friday. There's a really, really cool population description activity that kind of takes you through a real life example, which I think is really, really important when it comes to the concept of ecology. So let me know if this is something you can access. If not, I'll find something else. It's fine. Is there a login page? Website, hit resources. Up here at the top. Yep. See if that'll work. Here, you're on the right website. I'm gonna have you look for it a different way. I want you to hit explore our learning resources up top. Okay. Actually, hit that up there. All right, hit login up at the top. And then hit Google. Yep. Hit login. Or actually, you might have to hit, you might have to go back and hit register. So you are a student. Sign in through Google. All right. So up here where it says explore free STEM learning resources. So once you get on this website, up at the very, very top right-hand corner, explore STEM resources, and then hit register. So far. You get in? All right. All right, perfect. And you're in. Did you type in the Carter SCI thing? Beautiful. Yep, that right there, that African lion modeling populations is what you will do on today's Tuesday. Yes, you will do it on Friday. So, beautiful. Everyone is on. Register through Google. Everybody clear on how to get there? I will make sure to remind you, and there's will be a little thing. You'll have to screenshot your end results and put them up on Canvas. Cool, cool? Beautiful. All right.